where are all the competent people in governance globally? Like, where are the far-sighted people that have like a global understanding of the system and how all the parts link together? Because it seems at this point like they're entirely in China, if they
Mhm.
exist at all. I mean, if American hegemony is going to fall, it sure seems like we're fucking asking for it, doesn't it? Like, it sure seems like we're just
Yeah, one
inviting
thing
it
I
with
will
our
say
every
is that
action.
like during the Ukraine thing, like it was the first time in a long time that we really tested what it was like in terms of like, all right, what is America's relationship to the rest of the world? Because much of the world did sort of just essentially take the position whether or not America would deny this is irrelevant. That all right, we are essentially now doing this proxy war right between the U.S. and Russia, and we're taking sides. That's the way that it was just kind of perceived. And a large number of countries like India is very kind of reticent to uh, do like open condemnations of Russia. And yet also, I mean, like with Israel now, like I'm not sure if you ever check out India Twitter and how they feel about Palestine, but they are among the best
Well,
agents of
I
Israeli
mean,
Hasbara.
if you look at right-wing Indian spaces, I mean, they're basically doing
Almost any
Jewish
Indian on
friendship
Twitter, you
about
know what I mean?
Muslims.
Like
So
almost any Indian on Twitter is what I mean. Like it would be like they're primarily at least the small users, maybe not like the big names or whatnot, but the smaller users are always showing up in like IDF tweets and whatever, with like,
thumbs up.
Israeli flag, Indian flag together, right? With like hearts and love,
Yeah,
right?
India with Israel. This
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. So we have so like that is happening, but yeah, like with the Ukraine war, like I started noticing how fractured it really was, and that's not to say like you can't intellectually know that before the Ukraine war. I mean, like it was always there, but still, like it's true that without an actual event where this gets tested and you see what it looks like in real time, you don't really notice how the propaganda war plays out. You don't really notice how just like the discussion surrounding it play out, the kind of alignments and realignments that are happening all around us. And yeah, I mean, like the US definitely is boxing itself in any number of questions. And many of the Israelis that I speak to, well, not Israel, not even, sorry, not Israelis, Jews that I speak, which is another thing. I mean, a couple, like what one Jewish guy that I speak to, he recently got upset at me when I put up like that video of like Israel lied, like with the Netanyahu face, and he's like, don't you think that's veering a little too close to anti-Semitism? I'm like, no, I'm trying to do the exact opposite. I'm trying to separate Jews from Israel, not say that there's any kind of connection between the two. I am very specific always to say Israeli, but I do sometimes slip up. And guess what? Even though I try to work on that, I blame Israel for it because Israel
Well,
is doing such a heavy-handed job of trying to get every single person and every single Jew in the world to associate Israel with Judaism. They're trying to tell a bunch of random Jews, like New York City Jews that have never been to Israel, right? They have all these emotional attachments to the state of Israel, which did not exist prior to 1967. There were no emotional attachments. That's new. And that's the thing, and that's not even Israel technically in that regard. It's America decides post 1967 war, Israel is useful geopolitically. We're now going to push Israel as the thing that we all defend. It's a symbol of democracy. It's a symbol of humanity compared to the barbarism in the Middle East. And suddenly, all these people that they hate Democrats, they hate Republicans, they still take their marching orders. They still filters down. This is how they behave. Israel is doing such a disservice to Jewish people by associating itself with like, we speak for Jews, we represent Jews, we protect Jews. If we don't exist, you're going to cease to exist. By doing
I
all that, you now associate Judaism with all the shit that a specific nation state does. And I want to be
well,
specific about this is the nation state.
I mean, I mean, it's clear that they're totally like shooting the concept of Judaism in the foot
Mm-hmm.
by doing all this. Because I think there's a new documentary out that's coming out. It's called like Israelism or something like that, and it's basically going to be about how a lot of younger millennial and Zoomer Jewish people in America are awakening to the propaganda and the lies that
Mm-hmm.
Israel has spread about its place in Judaism writ large, and the good and the genocidal threats that it faces and that Judaism faces, and how there really is like some of the most anti-Israel people you will encounter are like American Jews that have kind of woken up about the issue.
Hmm.
I went to this, or people that were never pilled in the first place. I went to the Times Square rally and march last week, and there's a group of Hasidic Jewish people that are exceptionally anti-Israel. They're kind of a small-ish sect, but they had their rabbi get up there, and he delivered what I thought was the best and most powerful speech of the entire rally. But he gets up there and he says that Israel is engaged in a 70-year-long rebellion against God, which is like, and I mean, based on what I know of the, I mean, I've always thought that I mean, I'm irreligious in as much as anybody is irreligious, which I would say is not as much as we think, honestly, because a lot of secularism is just religion without the God figure at the center of it, But I mean, of the religions, I've always felt, even though I've raised in like a Christian society in a Christian town, like when I just look at the intellectual and theological traditions, the one I feel the most affinity for is Judaism. There's a dialectical and a discursive element to Judaism
Hmm.
that I think, and it's there is in some ways like a certain fatalism to Judaism that resonates with me. I'm in some ways not like a very active person in the world and less active than I should be, because I just sort of have well, I guess that's just the way things are kind of attitude that is, partially class-based, partially temperamental, partially whatever. But there is an element of that to Judy. It's like, you cannot control like the obstacles that God puts in front of you.
Hmm.
You cannot control the hardships that the world imposes upon you. You can only deal with it and try to kind of find meaning and community and a sense of connection in spite of these things. So they're really I mean that's not, of course, not that's obviously a very almost like new agey, a take on it. But I mean, these aspects of Judaism I find appealing. I feel a pull toward it. And based on what I understand of the religion, which granted is a layperson's understanding, but I haven't done no research, like the idea that Israel is basically a 70-year-long rebellion against God within the tenets of the Jewish faith as it existed prior to the establishment of Israel as a nationalist project is correct.
Hmm. I
Like the
mean,
whole,
I personally never really argue like these like finer theological points, because I know that when it comes to theologians, they will always find a way to like,
I know you
well,
can
but
make
in scripture,
theology do whatever
like
you
there's
want, but
always,
just
yeah.
just based on my intuitive gut level reading of
Oh
it.
yeah, of course.
But
I mean, yeah, yeah.
moreover, like it's a disservice to people like for whom the Jewish faith really is like something more than an ersatz blood and soil nationalism like you're
Hmm.
seeing in Israel. It's a disservice to people that take the biblical aspect very, very seriously. And it's also, I mean, it's amazing to me that there's not more cautiousness on the part of Zionists and Israeli people about the weird eschatological aspect of Zionism that has been adopted by evangelical right-wing Christians in America. That all of this chaos and all of like basically every time there is some sort of conflict in Israel, there is like probably like 5 to 10% of America that thinks that this is a marker of the coming of the rapture.
Hmm.
And they've just completely instrumentalized Jews and Judaism as part of their effectively, like white Christian nationalist project of eschatologically realizing the Armageddon, of apocalypse.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's not my place to talk about like the essence of Judaism or whatever, but it like as somebody who I guess could call himself an admirer of Judaism as a tradition, like maybe in the same way that like the Romans were an admirer of Judaism, as just like I respect something that has cohered and maintained itself for as long as Judaism has. I mean, it's really like it's really despicable to see these assholes like taint something that really like in my opinion did have a place in the world, just completely taint it and basically guarantee that unless something turns around very very quickly and precipitously, like there's just like Judaism is just not going to be the same as it has been for the last 4,000 years of its existence by I don't know 2100 or 2200 or something like that. They've guaranteed that it's going to go down as like this this failed like basically white race, like Judaism is almost defined by being outside of like white Europeanness as it's developed in the last 600 years, and yet it's completely become a project of that.
Mhm.
It's completely become like finding a version of whiteness with which you can potentially economically dominate the Middle East in the same way that like white colon like that Europe proper used to do colonially.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to talk about the Edward Said essay at some point here, and he talks about that.
Yeah.